Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was reportedly blindsided, realizing that his life of 30-room palaces and an army of servants had officially vanished. In its place stood a 5-bedroom farmhouse, a swampy floodplain, and a king who had finally stopped listening. But the real shock wasn't the downgrade in space, it was a single memo sent to the royal staff that changed the rules of the game forever. What was in that document that made his own team turn their backs on him? To Andrew Windsor, Marsh Farm wasn't a home, it was a cage. Imagine trading a 30-room palace for a ramshackle farmhouse sitting on a swampy floodplain. Reports claim he was instantly furious, viewing the move as a calculated insult from the king. This wasn't just about less space, it was about the total collapse of his royal identity. The internet had to be rebuilt from scratch, and a 6-foot fence was hastily hammered into the mud just to keep the public away. Inside, the walls were closing in. He was reportedly obsessing over a floor plan that felt more like a bachelor flat than a royal residence. But as the boxes were stacked high, a much darker reality began to set in. He expected his full team of chefs, butlers, and valets to follow him into the Norfolk mud. Instead, he found himself standing in an empty hallway, staring at a ghost crew. The staff he had relied on for decades weren't just delayed, they were actively choosing to stay away. And what the king did next would ensure that the doors at Marsh Farm remained very, very quiet. Andrew Windsor was about to discover that loyalty has a price, and for his staff, that price was finally too high. In an unprecedented move that sent shockwaves through the royal corridors, management reportedly issued a memo that changed everything. The directive was simple. No member of the estate staff would be forced to work for or serve Andrew. If they felt uncomfortable or uneasy due to his toxic reputation, they could simply say no. Within hours, a no-thanks list began to grow, leaving the former royal essentially blacklisted by the very people who once bowed at his feet. Imagine the tension in that house. Long-serving employees who had spent decades in the royal bubble were suddenly choosing redundancy over relocating to the Norfolk mud. They weren't just leaving a job, they were fleeing a man who had become a total pariah. One insider bluntly stated that for the first time in 66 years, Andrew might actually have to open his own front door. But the staffing shortage was just the beginning. The few workers who did show up were met with a rigid, cold environment that felt more like a military compound than a home. Reports claim his go-to phrase was a sharp 2-word command: "Do it." No appreciation, no warmth, just a ghost of his former power. And yet, while his human staff was walking away, there was one group of occupants Andrew refused to leave behind. He was reportedly obsessed with a bizarre high-stakes ritual involving dozens of stuffed animals that required a level of precision that would make a drill sergeant blush. What exactly was the 72 toy protocol that left new maids in tears during training? One of the most bizarre secrets of the royal household didn't involve jewels or hidden bank accounts. It involved 72 teddy bears. To any outsider, it sounds like a harmless hobby, but for the staff serving Andrew Windsor, it was a high-stakes nightmare. Former maid Charlotte Briggs revealed that new employees were actually forced to undergo a full day of training just to learn the exact military-grade arrangement of these toys on his bed. We're talking about a laminated guide kept in a drawer showing exactly where every bear and cushion, some labeled Daddy, Ducks, and Prince, needed to sit. If even one ribbon was slightly out of place, reports claim claim Andrew would explode in a fit of rage, screaming and shouting at the person responsible. Imagine being a professional estate worker and your entire career is on the line because a plush hippo was 2 inches to the left. Most of these bears were dressed as sailors in tiny uniforms, and his favorites reportedly sat on mahogany thrones right next to his pillow. It wasn't just a collection, it was a desperate, rigid need for control in a world that was rapidly slipping through his fingers. But when the move to Marsh Farm happened, the ritual faced a heartbreaking reality. The 5-bedroom farmhouse simply didn't have the space for 72 guests. In a state of what insiders called a full-on meltdown, Andrew allegedly argued that the bears wouldn't cope with the change because, in his mind, the palace was their home too. In the end, he was forced to make a symbolic and crushing choice. He reportedly took just one lone companion with him to Norfolk, a stuffed monkey, while the other 71 were packed into boxes and sent to a high-security lockup in South London. For a man who built his identity on status and precision, being separated from his collection felt like the final nail in the coffin of his old life. And as the trucks pulled away, carrying the last remnants of his childhood comforts, the scene outside his new front door was about to get a lot less polished and a lot more repulsive. Because while Andrew was mourning his bears, 20 massive tankers were rolling toward the farm, carrying a cargo that would change the very air he breathed. Imagine the stench of 150,000 gallons of liquid manure surrounding your new home, not as an accident, but as a daily reality. While Andrew Windsor was busy fighting to keep his royal dignity, the world outside Marsh Farm was becoming a literal field of filth. Reports claim that at least 20 massive white tankers, labeled non-hazardous product, began rolling down the narrow Norfolk roads. They weren't delivering fine wines or luxury goods, they were pumping a staggering amount of organic waste directly into the fields behind his new house. For a man used to the polished, manicured gardens of Windsor, the overwhelming smell was a brutal, unmasking reminder that he was no longer living in a fairy tale. Local villagers didn't hold back either. One neighbor summed it up perfectly, saying it was fitting that a man surrounded by scandal for years was finally exposed to the smells of the countryside. But the real insult was happening right on his doorstep. As the 3 massive removal lorries arrived to unload his belongings, onlookers noticed a detail that felt like a punch in the face to the monarchy. Despite being stripped of his titles years ago, the boxes were reportedly still plastered with labels like HRH Sitting Room and HRH Office. It was a desperate, almost pathetic attempt to cling to a status that King Charles had already erased. He was moving into a farmhouse that barely had enough room for his security detail, forcing his protection officers to live in a mobile home hidden in a stable block. Yet he was still acting as if he were the guest of honor. This wasn't just a change of address, it was a total collapse of a lifestyle. And as the manure spread across the fields and the HRH boxes sat in the mud, one question began to circulate among the estate workers. How much longer can Andrew pretend he's a royal when the king has already given the order to treat him like a commoner? The image of 3 removal trucks pulling away while tankers of manure rolled in has become a striking symbol for many watching this fallout. One chapter of excess has closed, and a much harsher reality has stepped in. Andrew Windsor may still have boxes labeled HRH, and he may still keep his plush monkey close by, but those details don't change the bigger picture. The world around him has moved on, and the response to his demands has shifted from instant action to quiet resistance and people choosing to walk away. There is a growing sense that something deeper is happening at Marsh Farm. It's not just about a change of address, it's the moment where lifelong privilege finally meets a hard limit. As the 6-foot security fences go up and the mobile homes for staff are tucked out of sight, the message from the palace is unmistakable. The old way of living is over. For the first time, the public is seeing a man who was once the son of a queen being forced to adapt to a world that no longer bends to his will. Whether he can survive this new, isolated life in the Norfolk mud remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the distance between Marsh Farm and the Royal Lodge has never looked wider. This move wasn't just a relocation, it was a permanent exile. What do you think? Is this move a fair consequence, or has the palace gone too far in stripping away his lifestyle? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. If you found this deep dive into the Marsh Farm standoff interesting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories from behind the palace walls.